So here is Quick Clicks episode number 4. The band is Groove Collective, the song is called Up All Night, and the bass player is Jonathan Maron. The quick lick sounds like this. So once again, as with previous episodes of Quick Clicks, we are in a pretty static harmonic environment. We are just outlining a G minor 7 chord. There's a couple of little tricks in there that cropped up actually in previous episodes as well. So when we were looking at Michel Ndege cello, which is episode number 2, we had this idea of putting in open strings as percussive notes. As ghost notes to enhance the rhythmic activity of a line, and we have that once again. Again, the open D string, just slipping that in before that double chromatic approach from the flat 7 up to the root. We've also got, if you look at bar 4 of the transcription, you can see that we have this nice little fill, which is just like we saw in week 1 with Joe Dart on that Fearless Flyers tune. We've got a nice little shake. Classic Paul Jackson approved bass trick of just going between the F and the F sharp, again adding a bit of authentic funk to the line. So the whole point of this is to get to that nice ear grabbing high register fill that happens in bar 8, and if we break it down and play it very slowly, which is always a good idea with tricky stuff like this, we'll find that it's just a G minor pentatonic with a couple of extra notes. So up at the 15th fret, that's our fill. Nothing remarkable harmonically, but the way you have to play it on the bass makes it a little bit unusual, particularly the way that we approach the chromatic movements in there. So I'm just starting out at the 15th fret with the B flat, going down to the root via the A, the 9, or the 2nd, which gives it a bit of colour, and just playing down the G minor pentatonic scale until I reach C. Landing on my 3rd finger and then tucking the little finger in to jump up a 4th again, back to the F. Now that's quite an unusual movement for your fingers, taking that chromatic movement of going D, D flat, C and spreading it out. All that stuff about leading with your little finger and your 3rd finger, which is something we don't really do very often. We tend to lead with this half of the hand, finger 1 or finger 2. Feels a bit unusual, so that's worth practicing. There is another way you can play this, as with every lick usually. There's more than one way to approach it, but I find that this approach doesn't quite flow as nicely for me. That could just be because I practice the other one a lot more, but this one you could approach it with a position shift. So after the first 2 notes, landing in that standard G minor pentatonic or G blues box, so we get that like that. That to me doesn't, although it's a more conventional fingering, it doesn't sit as nicely on the bass. It doesn't give me the right sound for the lick as well. I prefer the other way of playing it. So there we go, a quick chromatic pentatonic lick from Jonathan Maron. If you're not familiar with Jonathan, I definitely recommend checking out his work on a bunch of Maxwell tunes. If you're not familiar with Maxwell, you should be, because it's a sort of gold mine for bass players. The first 2 records that he put out, which are Maxwell's Urban Hang Suite and Now, are just chock full of great bass playing. A couple of the Groove of the Week series episodes were focusing on those. Jonathan's line on Ascension, Don't Ever Wonder, is worth a look. It's only 4 or 5 notes, but it really solid pocket for 4.5 minutes, which is great. A nice lesson in economical minimalist bass playing. Also, I did a transcription of Jonathan Maron's line on Groove Collective's Everything Is Changing, which is pretty tricky to play at tempo. It moves along quite brightly, about 120 for 16th notes. So I'll put the link to both of those in the video description and in the email. So while I've still got you here, I thought I'd address a couple of questions about gear. We had a question or two a few weeks ago about strings and such, so I just thought I'd address every aspect of gear right here, right now, to save any future queries. So the bass that I use for most of this is a 2005 USA Deluxe Fender Jazz in the very attractive Candy Tangerine colour. Everything on this bass is stock, haven't changed anything about it. The strings are Ernie Ball Cobalt Slinkies, which I have to say I'm not overjoyed with, but strings are strings. One of my students gets free stuff from Ernie Ball through the Mysteries of the Universe, so she thought I'd like to try some. Yeah, they're fine. They're right. The main thing with strings is, what are they made of? Are they stainless steel? Are they nickel? Are they cobalt? Are they flat wound, ground wound, taper wound, wound with something else? Could be anything. Are they coated like the Elixirs or the DR strings? That will have the biggest effect on the sound. The brand is really irrelevant. Just find one that you like the feel of. Go with it. It's what you play, not the gear that you use, which matters most. The other thing with strings is, are they brand new and zingy, which I'm not very fond of, or are they caked in grease and sweat and other grot and sound really dead, which I'm a very big fan of. There we go. My P bass has had the same set of flat wound strings on it for 7 years, and I have no intention of changing them because that's the sound that I like. Bass should always sound warm. The saxophonist Bob Reynolds always says that the bass player, it should feel like putting on an old comfortable jumper. So I like to go with that. Abe Laboriel as well, renowned session bass player, always says that the bass player is the house in which the other band members take shelter in. So I like to try and provide a warm, comforting house for everyone involved. Anyway, this bass with these strings goes into this DI box, the Noble preamp, which is wonderful. I'm a big fan of it. I've talked at length about it in other videos, and I've written articles about how much I love it and why it's great. It's very expensive, but I think it's worth it. Anyway, you may disagree. Those things go into an Apogee 1 interface, and that just goes into a laptop. So that is it. All the gear and no idea.